They don't come here to attack us because we're rich and we're free. They come and they attack us because we're over there.
We don't need to go populist left or populist right. We don't need to embrace neo-Marxism or neo-fascism, these disastrous movements from the 20th century. Turns out the answer is pretty much our Bill of Rights, our story. Embrace freedom. That's the answer.
And if the LP has a purpose, it's not to put people to sleep. It's to wake them up.
We're here because we love liberty, and we're here because we hate injustice. We are here to save mankind. We are here to fight.
Join us, the Libertarian Party, in perhaps the most exciting, grandest endeavor in history, the restoration of American liberty.
Ideas spread, they can't stop them. An idea whose time has come cannot be stopped by any army or any government.
Hello and welcome to episode 73 of Decentralized Revolution, a podcast from the Libertarian Party Mises Caucus and Mises PAC. I'm Aaron Harris and I'm your host. As I'm recording this intro, it's March 10th, just a few days after what happened in Pennsylvania last weekend, which was the Mises Caucus taking control there in Pennsylvania with the help from a lot of non-affiliated people who aren't part of the Mises Caucus or necessarily part of another caucus either. I actually drove up from Knoxville for that just because I was there for the 2021 convention and, kind of what went on there, which was it's a long story, but they pulled out all the stops to make sure that people that the Mises Caucus had brought to the Libertarian Party did not get to vote last year, but they weren't able to stop that this year. And so we were able to do exactly what we wanted. We had probably about easily 3/4, if not 4/5 of the delegates to that convention. And it went really well. You probably heard some stuff on social media that is rooted in some truth, but not exactly true. There wasn't a fight. At one point, some people affiliated with the sort of the old guard there in Pennsylvania literally they took the microphones away from the audience, and the microphones are where you can ask to be recognized and introduce motions and place objections and stuff like that. So one of our a Mises Caucus person, I think, I know he was kind of supporting our candidates, kind of objected to this, and someone kind of accosted him, and he was very obviously like on an oxygen tank, had an oxygen tank with him, and every time I saw him that day, he had at least one or both hands on that oxygen tank. And from there, when he was kind of confronted by someone physically, there was kind of a little scrum, but nothing really serious happened. And that taking the microphones was kind of their last ditch effort to kind of delay things from moving forward. Once we got that resolved, we got a convention chair that was not sort of delaying and just kind of trying to run out the clock, and things went really well. And I'm really proud of how everyone from the Mises Caucus behaved and comported themselves. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the conventions throughout the convention season leading up to Reno, which, of course, the Reno convention is the Libertarian National Convention in Reno, Nevada. It's actually in a little town called Sparks. I don't know how little it is, but the official address is Sparks, Nevada, but it's right abutting Reno. It's at I think it's the Golden Nugget or the Nugget Hotel Resort. I have made my plans. I'm driving out from Knoxville because I can't stay, like Ron Paul, I can't stay in the TSA. I won't wear a mask and things like that. So I'm going to drive through, Memphis and Oklahoma and Albuquerque and eat at the place where Saul Goodman eats in Albuquerque. It's called Loyola's. And then head on up to Reno. I hope you're making plans to do the same. If you want to get involved, you want to find out what's going on, how you can be a part of things, whether you're a delegate or not, you should make plans to go, because we are going to probably have plenty of need for alternates. So that means if, say, for example, I'm probably going to be a delegate here from Tennessee, but let's say I get sick and I can't make it. Well, the Tennessee delegation gets to replace me if people are on hand to do that, if I can't make it. And different states have different rules. Sometimes you have to be from that state. Sometimes you don't. So even if you're not going to be a delegate from your state, or you're not sure, you should make plans to go to the convention in Reno, because we will almost certainly have a place to slot you in where you can vote. That may be in a state other than where you actually reside and vote. And of course, we're going to abide by the laws of each delegation and by the convention and all that. But I've been to a couple Libertarian National Conventions, I think 3 now, in person. And each time there is plenty of spots open for people who want to participate, but weren't picked at the state level. So there's plenty of time to do that. And even if you, for some reason, don't get an alternate slot, we're going to have stuff for you to do anyway. You can run errands, get food for the delegates. You can whip people up and make sure they're not in the lobby and into the convention. We're going to have all kinds of stuff to do. If you record video or audio or take pictures, we will put you to use recording things, both just to kind of make sure things go are all on the up and up, but also just for posterity, so we can put some stuff here on the podcast and on our YouTube and Facebook pages and stuff like that. So if you have talents like that, come on out. And if you just want to be a part of what's going to be a great time, looks like we're going to be able to elect Angela McArdle as chair and really get the LP rolling. And I'm excited for that and what that's going to mean for the 2024 elections. We're going to be talking about that in the coming months here on Decentralized Revolution. So if you're not already, get on the Mises Caucus mailing list, and you can do that at takehumanaction.com. Just go to takehumanaction.com and sign up for that. And you can also give to Mises PAC. So if you can't make it, but have a little bit of extra money to help out, throw us a few bucks there. We are going to be subsidizing hotel rooms for a lot of people. Of course, a lot of people most people are going to, on their own dime, get out there by car or by plane and get their hotel room. Some people are going to need help with that. We've blocked out some hotel rooms and reserved them already. So if you want to help subsidize someone else who may not have a lot of extra cash to do this, please think about doing that at takehumanaction.com. And I said all that kind of leading into our guest today, who is Josiah Baker from what is now my home state of Tennessee. Josiah is one of these guys. You meet a lot of people in the Mises Caucus who are, just really great people, men and women who have different talents, unique personalities. And Josiah is just a really great guy. I'm glad I got to spend some time with him. Angela McArdle and I and Josiah and a couple of other people, we did a Students for Liberty event in Nashville, a little convention type thing. I think it was back in September. Josiah and I kind of manned the Mises Caucus table there. And he's a real outgoing guy and very good at sort of, saying, hey, why don't you come check us out? And we kind of had a good time talking to people there. And I'm not the type who can hail somebody walking past and get their attention. So I'm glad Josiah has that talent. He's a very charismatic guy, very positive guy, and which is by no means unique in the Mises Caucus. But he, like I say, I just proud to call him a friend. And we'll hear about what he's been doing here in Tennessee, both with the Mises Caucus and with a group called For All Tennessee. And that is, I'll just let him explain it, but you do need to look them up. If you're in Tennessee, to get involved and to support For All Tennessee. But if you're not in Tennessee and you want a model of something you can do along with the Mises Caucus in your state could take the lead in establishing or helping to establish a group like For All Tennessee, which is a nonpartisan, even a sort of a non-ideological group that works together on different things, different issues, to lobby at the state house, to try to get reforms at the state house level and below. Of course, the Mises Caucus, we only support candidates at the county level and below, just for several different reasons. But one, just we want to get some victories. We want to get candidates who can build a resume. And once you get, if you're at a big county or, the state house level, those sort of campaigns get really expensive really quick. So we're focusing our level at the county level and most of the time even below that, city and like township and things like that. But in a state like Tennessee, if you build good relationships with the legislature, you can get some things done. And Josiah is going to talk about what they've managed to do here with For All Tennessee over the last few years. And I'm excited what's going to happen with For All Tennessee and the Mises Caucus here in Tennessee in the next couple of years. And so really listen to what Josiah has to say, and that should give you some ideas as to what you can do in your neck of the woods, because the Mises Caucus is about, giving a general game plan that you then, as a Mises Caucus organizer, volunteer, will implement in your state. Now, a state like California is going to be much different than New Hampshire. But we see, Mises Caucus people working with other liberty-minded people in both of those states. Angela McCardle is leading the effort to get the vaccine passports revoked in Los Angeles County. And of course, we've got all kinds of great people up in New Hampshire in a much smaller setting. So, and Tennessee, of course, is kind of in the middle. So you have to adapt to your environment. And Josiah, what he has to say here is going to give you some tips on how to think about doing that in your neck of the woods. A couple of housekeeping things. I think I might mention the episode number in this episode, but we kind of got out of order for a couple of different reasons. I apologize for that. This episode is decentralizedrevolution.com/73. So please refer to that if you want to look up what we are talking about. And one of the things that we're going to talk about is the Libertarian Party of Tennessee convention, which is coming up on Friday, March 18th through the 20th of March on a Sunday. It's in Manchester, Tennessee, which is a couple hours away from me in Knoxville. It's right near where they have the big Bonnaroo Music Festival. Scott Horton's going to be there. Josiah and I are going to be there. My friend Dave Benner is going to be there. So if you're in Georgia, Kentucky, Alabama, any place like that, in addition to Tennessee, come on by and say hello. And you can find the information on how to get there and when you need to get there and all that at decentralizedrevolution.com/73. Now, here's my talk with Josiah Baker. All right, Josiah, it's great to have you on. How are you doing tonight?
Man, I am doing great. How about yourself?
I'm good. I didn't catch you like in a traffic stop, right? You're not like what?
No, not yet. I'm as many people in the Liberty movement, the age-old scenario is like the Liberty movement's kind of like a football game. You've got 20,000 people in the stands and 11 guys on the field, and you really could use more guys on the field. So anybody that wants to get on the field, please, let's all get on the field. But I had a meeting before this. I'm actually in the parking lot post meeting, and now I have a weekly anarchist get together that we do here in Nashville that's really growing. We do that around 9 p.m. So this was perfect timing.
Yeah, so we're in the same state, but in some ways, in the Hoppian future, I would see East Tennessee being a different state than Middle Tennessee, but they're both pretty good. You're in Nashville, which is not the same as Knoxville, which some people make that mistake a lot. They say, "Oh, I'm going to be in Nashville." I'm like, "Well, I'm still 3 hours away." Yeah. But no, I got to spend a little time with you in Nashville. There was a Students for Liberty event, and we kind of had a good thing going. Like I'm kind of one of those people who's like, I'm half in the middle between introvert and extrovert, and you're definitely not. You're definitely an extrovert pretty much all the time, if I'm guessing right. And
yes.
So I'm not the type of guy who likes, to accost people. Like going door to door and stuff like that would just like terrify me. I could speak in front of 500 people and I do this, but like that little chit chat stuff, I can't do it. And you're great at that. So when people would come by our table, Josiah would, he was kind of the carnival barker and strike up a conversation and talk about the Mises Caucus. And then if they showed some interest, he would kind of push them over to me, or Angela was there. And we got some good discussions and stuff that way. So I just like the fact that in the caucus, we have a lot of different personalities doing a lot of different things. And I'm looking forward to working with you more here in Tennessee. I've only been here less than a year. So there's lots of places we could talk about. Well, why don't you talk first about how you got involved with the Mises Caucus and the LP here in Tennessee, and what's going on with that?
Yeah, it's funny. Before the COVID regime descended upon the universe, I used to pretty regularly be a tour manager for rock and metal acts or whoever would pay, and I would always, you saw me at Freer Future Fest. I'm always a networking kind of guy. I'm like, hey, let's be Facebook friends. We got a 5,000 count limit for a reason. And so I would do that at shows. If somebody, I hit it off at the merch table or something, we would stay in contact to let them know about shows upcoming, that kind of thing. And there was a guy that I met at this Baltimore show. I was out with a band called The Contortionists. And this was a few years ago. And I wasn't even with that band at the time. And then I ended up working with them later. And this guy was always liking the Contortionist posts I would make. And then I was like, who is this guy? So I'd do the Facebook creep, and I'd bounce over there. And he was all the time sharing like this Ron Paul stuff. Okay. And this stuff that I was like, this is exactly, wait, I'm not the only guy that is like this. And I started digging in more, sent him a message. I'm like, dude, so what's up with all these base posts? Like, this is awesome. And he's like, yeah, dude, you should check out what we got going on. And, lo and behold, this guy was Michael Heiss. And I had met him, I guess, in passing at the merch booth at that Contortionist show, and struck up a conversation, no doubt. And the Venn diagram closed over just in time through the medium of Facebook. And I'm like, yeah, I'll check it out. And I was like, okay, I've been a libertarian guy for years. I never got involved in the party at all. Tried a couple times to defend it when I lived in Florida during like the 2016 campaign, and had a lot of facepalm moments. And I was like, I can't commit to this party thing, man. I'll continue to be my own little island. I'll continue to be the person that everybody thinks is some default contrarian because I don't go along with the discussions at lunch or something. But, I was kind of a man without a country. And all of a sudden I'm like, wait, there's this movement within the LP that, it's the same catchphrase I used at the table with you. The vision is to capture that energy of the Ron Paul revolution, of the 2008 and the 2012 campaigns, harness that, put it back into the party, bring it all home where it belongs, harness that energy, and see the party thrive, because we have so many opportunities that we can do that. And when I heard that, I was like, got a little bit of chill bumps. I was like, okay, this is something I could get behind. Now, granted, I was like, hey, you're going to have to show me, because all I got to do is exactly what all the normie people do. And they pull out their phone and they Google Libertarian Party and show me, a couple things that immediately discredit any kind of rapport that I build up with family or friends. And that's fine. It's a battle that we have to take on. I have no issues with it. But that's how I got involved, man. The caucus is actually what got me involved in the party, and I've been a libertarian forever. And that's not to say that there wasn't, and that there's not good people outside the caucus in the party that's been doing a lot of great work. You know, two things can be true at once. I have no problem saying that. But it was getting involved in this caucus and then seeing the, for lack of a better term, Mount Rushmore of all stars that are involved. And I started looking, and I'm like, you know, everyone on the advisory board or whatnot, these people don't need the party.
Right.
The party needs them.
Yeah.
These people aren't in it, you know, to build their own sandcastle trailer park. These people are in it because they're passionate about the ideals. And that's really what drove me, man, to get involved.
Yeah, and I'm actually reading a book about the Ron Paul campaigns by Brian Doherty from Reason Magazine to kind of go back and rekindle some of my memories of that. And you know, the thing that strikes me that is kind of what we're trying to do with a little bit of a different spin is, you know, decentralization, not only in, you know, what our political goals are, but organizationally. Like that, there was a reporter, you know, Ron Paul was like in Iowa, and this reporter from Pittsburgh had come out to cover the Iowa primaries, and she said, "Hey, you know, you've done a really great job of getting your Pittsburgh organization together. You got a really big presence there." And he's like, "Well, I don't know about it, like, because people just on their own took the initiative to get out and do the signs and all that stuff." And as great as the Ron Paul movement was, the fact that it was so decentralized, nobody, you know, once he retired, it kind of dissipated. Then the Trump thing kind of came along, and we're trying to turn that back around. That people who are dissatisfied with what's going on don't need to go to the Republicans or the Democrats, because they're just going to get the same thing. So, you know, we're trying to build something and empower the LP to be that, you know, permanent kind of hub, and then empower all the state parties to do the local stuff, to run the local candidates, to do the state and local issues. And so, you know, I just think it's great, you know, your story and what you're trying to do there in Nashville is build those coalitions with people inside and outside the party. So that's exactly what we want to do. We don't need the board, you know, the 9 of us on the board to tell you guys what to do, because we're not that smart, and you guys know your situation better. So you get involved, you sign up as an organizer. What happens then? What kind of reception did you get with the LP here? What kind of personal coalitions and stuff did you start forming? Because I know there's one big one that you're going to talk about. So
yeah. So I had this system, if you will, from my professional. So I'm a salesman by trade. I've
really?
always been, I've always been a salesman. I fell into it completely face first right out of high school. I was in that income bracket where my dad worked his butt off, but he made too much to qualify for, you know, any assistance, but didn't quite make enough to pay my way through. So I went straight into the workforce, and I went straight into you know, automotive paint sales, and found myself on automotive aftermarket now. But between that and doing music, I had this internal system of organization, of spreadsheets, of multiple contacts per city, multiple contacts for this, that, or the other, you know, whether it be this is who you hit up for press in this town, this is what you do. And so I retired from, or I should say COVID retired me from live music. So I had this internal system, and I kind of view things through formulas. And so I took that formula of organization and extracted that formula, and I'm like, I want to put my energy and formula into this. And I love connecting people, man. It's what I love. I love being that, you know, you should know this guy. Like when I finally got to introduce you to my friend Justin Cornett, which I'll go into deeper. I'm like, you two should probably know each other. He's OG Knoxville. You just moved to Knoxville. You should know a lot of the people that he's been friends with for years, that kind of thing. And so, yeah, coalition building became a thing for me. I've always been, I came in after all the caucus war stuff and the piss and vinegar and the this versus that. And I'm like, look, I'm starting ground zero with me. I can easily form my opinion of somebody from just being around them or reading for fuller context. We're all big boys and girls. And very quickly, because I would have people tell me well, you're Mises, aren't you? And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they're like, I can just tell that you are. And this would happen in person. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means. I just want a party that espouses these values and can articulate these values to people with eye contact. I mean, I don't think that's so much to ask. But slowly but surely, whether it be locally or at state level, I can tell you this, I've had zero issues personally. Yep. And I've built a lot of rapport with other people. And, I'm a firm believer that consistency, if someone's heart is in the right place, consistency will matter to them. And consistency is a mirror that makes you look into it and really evaluate if you believe what you say you believe. Right. And that's something I can truly say that I've seen the caucus do and do well is, do we get excited sometimes, get rambunctious? Absolutely. That chalk it up to passion, whatever. Could we be better at times? Who couldn't be better at times? But I think that there's an energy, there's a consistency, and it's infectious. And, I think about, the days of Ron Paul talking about the remnant. And I like to think that the four corners of the remnant are slowly coming home and building something truly special here, man. It's exciting.
Right. And I see a little bit of that, actually a lot of that in the caucus because, there are, there are greatly differing personal profiles of people. There are people who are, into psychedelics, and then there are people like me. There's Christians, there's atheists, there's people from all parts of the country. You're a salesman. I just recorded an episode with Dave Casey. He runs his own cafe and coffee stand. There's all this different energies coming together. And in the LP before, I spent several years in the LP before the Mises Caucus. There wasn't as much of that, people from different walks of life. I don't want to go into all that, but it just seems to me that there's a greater diversity of types of people. And I think that, that fits with the decentralized message. And I think that kind of what the LP has had a little bit of a problem with, and it's not for, malice on anybody's part or not many people, but it has been very top down. Let's get a former Republican or Democrat to run. Let's set a campaign at headquarters, and let's try to play nice with the media, and we'll get recognition, and then it'll trickle down to all the state and local parties and things like that. Whereas we're trying to do it exactly the opposite. So it takes a different person in Idaho than it does in Florida and Tennessee. So I was actually at the convention here in Tennessee last year, and we're getting ready in about a month to have this year's. And so you're part of an organization that is not part of the LP, but it's a natural fit with what we're doing with the Mises Caucus and what we want the LP to be doing. And so that's called For All Tennessee. Justin Cornett's part of it. And you guys have had, I was just impressed. It's not that old of an organization.
Yeah.
But you guys have had some good victories and a couple almost huge victories that came really close, I think. So that's our vision for the party in the caucus. And so you're already doing it. So tell us about For All Tennessee.
Yeah. So For All Tennessee, I guess it has officially been an organization for a little over a year. And just for context, last state session, with only 34 members at the time of the group, we got 3 bills signed into state law. And it's a diverse group of people. And the beauty of that is diversity happens only when it's organic. Forced diversity is not diversity. Diversity springs up organically within a movement. And that's what's beautiful is with For All Tennessee, we're nonpartisan, which means we have Democratic Socialists in our organization, from Memphis to the absolute most red button conservatives and everything in between. And we all take our shoes off at the door, come together strictly on issues. And if those issues limit government and empower people, we take it on as a citizens lobbyist group. Just last year, we were able to get 3 things across the line. We were able to get essentially a backdoor ban on civil asset forfeiture in the state of Tennessee. Civil asset forfeiture average case is $2,200. The legal fee reimbursement, if you actually went down to Nashville Courthouse, the only place that'll see civil asset forfeiture cases in Tennessee, if you took them down there, took them to court, which is expensive, they have to give you $600 reimbursement for legal fees. Let's be serious. $600 is not going to get you a lawyer who can tie his tie.
Right.
Now, with our bill, the backdoor ban raised civil asset forfeiture cap reimbursement from the $600 to $10,000. Now, when the average civil asset forfeiture case is $2,200, that officer is going to think twice about what he's going to cost his department with potential legal fee reimbursement going that high. Right. So that was a big win, and that's a win that libertarians love to talk about for hours. Yeah. We did something about it. We also have this session a bill to end it entirely that just got co-sponsored. That's for this session. So incrementalism is a good thing. You go from raising it to now turning up the heat. Last year, we also came in and we protected local businesses. We removed mayors and health officials being able to call anyone, essential or not, even in a state of emergency.
Yep.
And everybody listening to this knows and can think of how many of your friends and family have lost their entire life savings because it was more important for Walmart and Target to get those dollars than the local mom and pop shops. So never again is that going to happen in Tennessee.
I thought that was great. I saw that coming in here. I moved in the beginning of April, and my wife was looking at the paper or online or something like that, and looking up what the health department had been doing. And she was like, all the votes are like, I don't know, I forget how many people were on and were voting at the time, but all the votes were like 7-1, 7-1, 7-1. And the one was Glenn Jacobs, who as mayor apparently has a seat on the board. And then this thing happened. And I think it gave his office, the authority to take away some of their powers. And the lady who was head of the health department, I mean, personally, I feel bad for her, but as a libertarian, my heart was singing. Like, I think she had been doing this for like 20 years and she like tearfully resigned, It's an older lady. And I hate to, but like, part of me is like, what you've done to people, like that's not good. So, I mean, to have a really, that was just a stark example of sometimes when you challenge their power and you take away the things that they can do, it's like popping a balloon. And so, right away, I think there were still a few, there was still like a health department mandate or something. Most people here in Knox County were not paying attention to that. But that all finally was killed dead with all that. So what you guys did had a really tangible effect on businesses and just people, their well-being here in Knox County. So that's awesome. Yep.
Well, Aaron, what it also did was suddenly show that there is accountability.
Yep.
As an officer. If you make a bad move, you're held accountable. Yep. And I hate, but I don't hate when someone resigns from a position that thought, whether, that's the thing too, is it helps people realize that actions have consequences.
Yep.
And accountability, at the very least, is what we should have with our public officials. And that leads into our third thing that we did. We saw, with the, riots and not, all the craziness that happened in the past year. We saw, police shootings of civilians. We saw all these things happen. So Tennessee stepped up to the plate, and we got not just the best, but the only police reform bill in Tennessee passed with 0 no votes. And it included a ban on chokeholds, a ban on no-knock raids, mandatory de-escalation training, mandatory intervention of excessive force, no shooting at moving vehicles. 0 no votes. Tennessee was like, hey, we don't want to be what just happened in Kentucky with that no-knock raid gone bad. We don't want to be any of this stuff. Let's remove those things. And what that also does is it by nature reduces the interactions. Yeah. If you reduce the amount of interactions, you, by law of average, reduce the amount of interactions that can go bad.
Yeah.
It's math.
Yeah. I mean, I used to teach for 3 years at a school that was designed for kids who had kind of not made it or been expelled from Dayton Public up in Ohio. And that's as I like to say, that's one of the worst public school districts in the universe. And from learning from those kids, this is about 10 years ago, that, the whole driving while black thing kind of is a thing. And that there are so many excuses for police to roll up on somebody, and then they can use their discretion in doing that. So, whether it's a cell phone law or smoking in the car law, if a cop doesn't like the way he looks at you, he's got some pretext for stopping you if you got your phone in your hand or something. And then you're right. That's exactly when the problem happens, is something goes wrong. And when they're not trained in de-escalation, like the Michael Brown thing in Missouri a few years ago, like it was one kid, I don't know how old he was. So maybe he was a young adult, but one person steals a cigar from a store and a cop ends up getting in a fight with them. Like use your head, right? Like the guy who stole the cigar was certainly in the wrong in some degree, but the fact that police for the most part are not trained to avoid and de-escalate when they can, this isn't a burning building or somebody with a gun in a McDonald's. This is a kid who stole a cigar. So that's, and so the fact that bill could get passed in Tennessee, where, here in Knox County is maybe a microcosm of Tennessee, because you have the university and you have what's in the city. And my impression is that it's very, very liberal. And then on my side of Knox County, up in the top right-hand corner, it is hardcore, as red as you can get. And the fact that both of those sides of things, they both like the police for their own, their own purposes. So the fact that, that both sides can kind of come together on that, like, I mean, you obviously picked the right moment, but, and some of these things, I think the fact that you guys are showing up and you have this idea, like, you don't, you got to take your shot, right? So I think a lot of places that the LP and the Liberty movement, we haven't been taking our shot. We haven't been working with other people to force these legislators and regulators to consider these things. They just keep doing what they want to do. And if nobody says anything, then it's just going to keep happening. But if you get them on the record of having to vote yes or no, or to introduce the bill or not, that way, sometimes they make the right decision. You just got to make a decision.
Yeah. And it's funny, actually, getting rid of the voice vote and having voting on record was one of the things we took up as well. Voting on the record is kind of important. People should know what the representatives are doing or not doing. And that's something that we found, I stumbled across this organization. I saw a Liberty meet and greet that Steve Trenwald, who's been involved in the LP here in the state since its conception, he had sent me an invite to it at a pizza place, and I went to it and I walked in and I said, wait a minute, what are you? You must be selling me some snake oil. This sounds too good to be true. This idea. There's what? Let me read the fine print. There is no fine print. It's literally, like I said, man. It's like it's strictly focused on issues. So all of a sudden, you've got coalition building on issues that matter to people.
Yeah.
And it's completely. I'm not a huge fan. Oh no, I'm not a huge fan of democracy because I think it's easily abused. But the fun catchphrase is it's a complete democratization of each member. So it doesn't matter if you donate $6 a month or $6 million a month. You get one vote as a member. Now you can allocate your dollars to an issue. Say you only care about police reform. You can say, hey, I'm donating, but my dollars are focused towards this. Okay, fine. And the money goes towards maintaining the website, making sure that we have proper lobbyists that can go knock down every door during state session, which can be tough. Finding quality lobbyists to go do our stuff, which is a lot of times members, versus your traditional people. But we've got some really solid folks in and not in this caucus, and it's fun to honestly take the hat off, take the shoes off, sit down around the table, talk about the issues, find ways to hit the issues from different angles that you traditionally wouldn't be able to hit them just from the lens of through the LP.
Yeah. So that for all Tennessee, I think you had explained it to me at another time, and Justin, I think, told me a little bit about it. But explain that in a little more detail about how contributors get to direct the issues that you guys work on.
Yeah. So it's $6 a month. I think that ends up being $60 a year, or you can do more. But that and they send out a list of issues, and it's a ranking system of agree, strongly agree, neutral, full spectrum of how you feel on all these issues. And we send that thing out. In fact, if you go to the For All Tennessee Facebook page and scroll down a couple months, you'll probably find the Jot Form quiz, and the members are able to strategically, in their own voice, pick what issues they want to talk about, what issues are important to them. You can submit your own issue. We've got somebody that moved here from California recently and is like, hey, what's up with raw milk? Me? I don't really sit around thinking about raw milk all day. Right now in the state of Tennessee, you can only get it from certain co-ops.
Right.
You can't just go to the local Whole Foods and get it. I didn't know that, but it was important to her. And so if it falls in the parameters, empowering people, limiting government, no matter big or small, it's an issue that we're willing to take on. And that's what we're doing this session. It's been really awesome. It's grown, and people that were skeptical have been like, oh, they did this last year. Now we're going into this state session. We've got two people I honestly didn't think would sponsor it, but they sponsored the decrim bill for marijuana. We're looking at a better, well-informed jury on the front end of trials, knowing that the majority. That's some people don't realize. Jury nullification is one of the things that there's a reason the majority of the citizens are ignorant on jury nullification.
Right.
They should be told on the front end of a case that they have the power to do so. They should also be told what coercive tactics were used in the negotiation with the supposed perpetrator.
Yep.
What settlement was offered. They should see it. They should know it to be well informed.
Yep.
Most people don't think about it.
And I think in some places, not only, I think most every court, I don't think they even touch on even the outside of the concept of jury nullification. Maybe some do, but I don't think they do. But in some places, I think it's actually illegal. Like I think that it's been challenged and things like that. But like they take that seriously. So like if you were out in front of the courthouse with a sign that said Google jury nullification, you'd have some company pretty quick. It's just about every courthouse in the country. So that's big. So here's what I wanted to talk about a little bit is, I just moved here to Tennessee from Ohio, which is a sort of a purple state with a horrible Republican governor. Mike DeWine, he's the worst. and a lot of people, over the last couple of years, U-Haul has been doing huge business. And I think the top three destinations are Florida, Texas, and Tennessee. So I've talked to people in the caucus who are like, hey, we're thinking about moving. I'm trying to recruit them to come here, but I'm sure I know there's downsides to Tennessee. So how is Tennessee as a whole, liberty wise, and what are some of the things that the LP, the Mises Caucus for all Tennessee can, what's the 5-10 year plan of things that we really need to be looking at, either local or more primarily at the state level that need to change to make it an even better place?
Absolutely. So it's a great question. I'm a maybe it's my ministry background, I don't know, but I proselytize constantly to all my friends, please move to Tennessee. And then I take it one step further, and like we were going to buy during the middle of COVID a house in Nashville, and the crazy mayor announced he wanted to raise property tax 34% in the middle of COVID in an entertainment city. And so we were like, no, tear up the papers, move to Clarksville, Tennessee, up about 40 minutes north, never look back. Love it. Lowest cost of living in the state.
Yep.
We have an elected Big L Libertarian City Councilwoman, a phenomenal Libertarian leaning independent county commissioner. I'm the chair of the party up there. And in fact, I'm running 2 more county commissioner Big L Libertarians, and call it the HOPA model, if you will. I'm focusing our energy locally, all at one body, to seize it and run things the way it should be run. I'm proselytizing hard. I almost pulled out my prayer hanky and shook it just now talking about it. But because I believe everybody come to Tennessee. I don't care where you come. This state itself, actually, I do care where you come. I want you to come to my backyard. But anyhow, the state itself is almost universally built on distrust of government. All you have to do is look up Battle of Athens.
Yep.
Look up story after. I mean, Dave Jones, the chair of the state, told me, he's like, it's in our state song. The state song talks about feds that went up in the hills, never to return.
Yep.
So there's definitely a distrust of government here, and also,
when your state song is a bluegrass song about moonshining, the Osborne brothers, that's that indicates something. Yeah,
absolutely, man, and it's something here that between that mixed with the Southern hospitality, there's a real bridge already pre-made for you. All you have to do is make eye contact, firm handshake, and speak it with passion, and people will get on board, especially after 2 years of the COVID craziness that we went through. So whether it be, the Libertarian Party here in Tennessee has done some really solid things. They've really helped, back us up with For All Tennessee. We've had a really, really solid time. Now, we do have insane ballot access laws, which minority party ballot access is something that we got a bill sponsored for right now, because I believe it's around 53 or 56,000 signatures.
Yeah.
A minor party has to get in the state versus, I believe 25 to run as a Republican or Democrat. So that's a big thing. But, once again, coalition building, an organization like For All Tennessee is willing to take that on because it's one of the 2 things that matters to the organization and the party. So it's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, your city councilor, that's Trish Butler, right?
Trish Butler, she is phenomenal.
I know we endorsed her, and I think we gave her some money a couple of years ago. So that's an example of what we're doing at the Mises Caucus to run those local candidates. And I sometimes get responses to the email that I send out for the caucus. And I know other people get asked about, hey, will you fund this person who's running for state rep or something like that? Right now we're focusing on county level or below. And like, if it's a big county, unless it's a candidate that's already got name recognition and a really great resume, probably not even there, because it's so tough it's the electoral system the media, the whole thing is rigged against us. And so we got to start getting there's really no low hanging fruit. Maybe there's a little bit, but we got to go for that medium hanging fruit before we get to the big stuff. And, that's a prime example of something that's making a difference. And I'm just really glad to hear that there's a little coalition with the other independent there and things like that. So it sounds, I got the impression that the party here in Tennessee is doing fairly well, and that's going to hopefully help keep the state the way it is. Like one of my closest friends lives the next county over, Sevier County. And he was the editor of a newspaper called the Mountain Press, which covers, like Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, which is kind of the resort touristy stuff.
Yeah.
And he said that it's funny that he would, so in that capacity as a reporter and an editor, he would have to cover city council meetings and county commission meetings and all that stuff. And then, people would come down here to Tennessee from Ohio, New York, Illinois, Massachusetts, California, this is even over the last 20 years, to escape the high taxes and regulation, or to retire here because there's no income tax. But then these would be the same people at the city council meetings advocating a tax on this or a law against that. And so there is a strain, and I've seen it and heard it here in Knox County, that, I think there's a thing in Austin, like, don't California my Austin. There's a don't Cleveland my Knoxville. There's a don't Dayton my Knoxville vibe here, because half the people who come here are from Ohio. My grandfather was from Townsend, so I have a connection here, but there's no income tax here. So the danger is these people coming and bringing with them maybe not all the statism, but a little bit. So if we're organized and can knock some of this stuff down, but more importantly, it sounds like what you guys are doing is moving that over to window. So if we're talking about getting rid of asset forfeiture and making ballot access easier and decriminalizing this and that, then they don't have time to talk about the public-private partnerships and don't have as much energy to spend on it. And so that, to me, you got to change the conversation. That's the thing I think that small minorities can do, is force people to look a slightly different way, and at least, if nothing else, distract them a little bit. So,
it makes me think of Rothbard's history series, how he talked about a well-organized minority, and that's exactly how we got the country we have today. The anti-federalists were just not as well organized, not as well spoken.
Yep.
And that's what ended up being their undoing. But exactly what you're saying actually leads into the state party convention that's happening next month. So you asked, because that is a general concern. We're getting an influx here in Tennessee of the traditionally blue or purple states. And my response to that is, this is why we need more local candidates.
Yep.
We need more people running for sheriff, county commission, city council, school board. And a lot of people go, where do I even start? What do I do? And that's why convention, one of the biggest focuses, I'm on the convention planning committee. I worked with everybody on the XCOM about it. And David Tyler, who is the state treasurer, loved David. He's like, yeah, we should do a candidate panel. So what we're going to do, David Tyler and Shane Hazel, obviously everybody listening to this knows Shane. Shane's going to come up. They're going to do a candidate 101 breakout session, Q&A, where people can go, okay, what do I do? That we're going to teach you how to do it. Get the PO box, do this, do that. This what's worked for me. This and so that way it's spelled out easy. So you've got somebody that is, no pun intended for libertarians, paved the road ahead of you, so you can get on it and go. And then on top of that, we have something that I'm unaware of any other convention having. We're going to have 3 libertarian gubernatorial candidates on a panel about outreach, ballot access, petitioning, how to grow the base throughout the state. We've got, obviously, Shane Hazel's going to be there. Ricky Harrington from Arkansas is going to be there.
Yep.
I love him. And LaMichael Wilson out of Memphis, the vice chair of the party is going to be running for the gubernatorial candidate for Tennessee. So we're going to have all three on the stage with all three different perspectives talking about that. We've got Jo Jorgensen is going to be there. She's going to be there talking about everything. She's been around the movement forever. Hannah Cox is going to be there. Hannah's great. Everybody knows the stuff that she does online with Fee and with her new show based with Brad Palumbo. And just this week, we announced Mr. Scott Horton is going to be there. The Scott Horton from antiwar.com, Libertarian Institute. He is going to be there. All these folks will be there at the gala Friday night, all dressed up, and then non-formal on Saturday. I'm excited about it, man. There's never been a better time to be a Tennessean, man. Yeah. Because we're really got the tools. We got to do this the right.
And how do you pronounce the name of the town where they're having the convention?
It is in Coffee County. And if you hadn't asked me, spell it for me or start it.
Oh, Manch?
Yeah, Manchester. Sorry. Okay. For some reason, I was thinking Tullahoma, which is the next city over. But yeah, Manchester.
Because I'm a big Anglophile, and I'm actually a soccer fan, believe it or not. But
gotcha.
It's Manchester that way, so I figured we probably didn't pronounce it that way here in Tennessee. But
yeah, it's definitely not Manchester United.
and that's out where they have the Bonnaroo Music Festival, right?
Yep,
right,
which is huge revenue, and they've canceled it 2 years running.
Yeah, man. So we're gonna show some love to the vendors there. Not even a drop in the bucket compared to what they would normally have with. I know Tom Petty headlined it back in the day, so it's like super huge.
Yeah.
So that's really good to hear. So, and we were talking a little bit right before we started recording, and I love to hear these stories, and I really want to keep this vibe going. Like I really hate the stories that we hear from New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Delaware. I think there's a couple other states where, the people who fear us, hate us, don't understand us, whatever. Some of them maybe are misguided, but some of them I think are truly very bad actors. And they poison the whole party. And what I've tried to recommend is we need to be as professional as we can. Mm-hmm. We need to work with people, be as nice as we can while being firm. And that way the people in the middle, the normal, unaffiliated, run-of-the-mill libertarians will be able to figure it out. And from what I can tell, there hasn't been much, if any, of that nonsense here in Tennessee. There's a pretty good rapport among the different sort of flavors of Big L libertarians. Do I have that right?
So me and Dave Benner and David Tyler and Dave Jones. It was like a Dave party. And I was the one guy with the different name. We all went to the Georgia convention, and I just wanted to get, take some mental notes, and we went, some good speakers there. And we noticed an absolute lack of the animosity vibe.
Okay.
Everybody was getting together. Everybody was linking arms, doing work together. Zero issues whatsoever. There was no football spiking. There was no my team versus your team. It was, hey, we're libertarian, and that's the way it is. And we didn't see a single ounce of any of those problems. Mm-hmm. I talked with Dave Jones, and Dave Jones, I love Dave, man. I got to spend some good quality time with him. It's the first time I got into. And Tennessee, maybe it's a Southern culture thing. I don't know. But tomfoolery is not going to happen in our backyard, to quote Dave Jones. When it comes to, this is our yard, this is our house. Yeah. We're doing things the correct way, the right way, the just way, and we want what's best for the Libertarian Party, and that's to be libertarian, period.
Yeah.
And I have 100% confidence in Dave Jones.
That's good. Yeah, I actually got to see him get elected, and I'm glad to hear he's working out. He likes to tell everybody he's from the whiskey region here in Tennessee.
Yep.
Which is, I think, over by where they make Jack Daniels, right? Is it?
That is correct.
Lynchburg, right?
Yep.
So yeah, well, that's good to hear, and it's great to I'll be able to see Scott again. I spent a lot of time working with him. I helped him write his book. I edited it. One of the editors. So my proudest accomplishment of the last 5 years, besides getting married, has been I'm like the fourth name in the acknowledgments.
I was going to say, I saw it in my book. Yeah, I've got a copy from that festival. Yeah,
and I'll sign it for you when I'm there.
Perfect.
But I'm like so proud of Scott. Like he worked on that book for a long time, and the book could have been, the big challenge was getting it down to 300 pages rather than 3,000. Like literally, like he could have easily had 3,000.
If only every libertarian could understand that editing window.
Yeah, it was tough, man. It was like a pregnancy for him, to get that out in that form. And I think it turned out great. And it got mentioned, Dave Smith mentioned it on Rogan.
Huge.
And I looked, and he was like in the, I don't think it was the politics section. I think it was like in like books on war and terrorism. On Amazon, it was number 3. And I think it had cracked like the top 250 books on Amazon.
Love it, dude.
So like that's huge for a depressing book about 20 plus, actually 30 or actually 50 years of the terror war stuff and the precedent for it. So I think it's great that if a party's willing to get Scott Horton out here, as well as Shane Hazel and Ricky Harrington, that's a good sign. And so I think that's what we want to do, is hope that the people who are leaving California, New York, Illinois, Ohio, that maybe those people are the people who are a little more libertarian, or a lot more libertarian in my case as an ANCAP. And, we need to nurture that when it comes in. And so with those people come in, I don't think the union reps and the public school administrators are the ones moving from New York to Tennessee and Austin. It's the small business people. It's the freelancers like me. It's the entrepreneurs. So I really hope that this is going to further the chances of an actual divorce, a political divorce, where instead of 50 states really under one country, that we have maybe a few different countries, and this starts to break up so we can live more peacefully. Like, I love California. I love everything about California except what their government does. I want to still be able to go to California and see family and go to baseball games, go to the beach, but I don't want California to have anything to do with what the income tax rate is here in Tennessee. So
yeah,
I'm excited by this trend, and hopefully as libertarians we can, encourage that that culture of welcoming in the freedom-loving side of people, to kind of really cultivate that. Because when you think about it, like when you go to a new job or a new school, like the first couple of people you meet can sometimes determine, your arc in that place. So hopefully if we get a good small L liberty movements and Mises Caucus and LP stuff going, that those people will say, hey, okay, it's a little more freedom than where it was. Let's keep going in that direction.
Absolutely, man. With the secession movement becoming a talking point now, that's not dismissed in the first 10 seconds of discussing it. And I've got a friend, actually, well, he's not back from Norway yet, that meets at these anarchist meetings. He describes himself when he's in his home country of Norway as being, well, I would consider myself socialist here, but I'm libertarian in the Americas.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. He's like, I use him as a point of reference when we talk about secession. I'm like, yeah, let's talk about how bloody that secession was with Sweden and Norway, man. Yeah. Like, so bloody, Well,
tell what really happened, though. And that wasn't that long. It was it 1800s,
1800s, I believe. It wasn't that long ago. And that's one of the things that helped him come aboard with this thought. And everybody wants to talk and go immediately to the U.S. Civil War. And that, there's a lot more baked into that than a simple secession, obviously. And that's a conversation for another day. But secession being a peaceful secession, I think honestly, like you said, it's been a soft secession the past 2 years, and people started to realize, you know, to quote the ever lovable / hateable, and depending on who you are, Hoppe, you know, if you get the Liechtensteins going down, and really paying attention in your small level communities, you can build this thing from the ground up. Because the only way you can sustain something is from the ground up. You don't build the house to the roof first.
Right. And I think we talked about that with Dave Casey, him and I, in the previous episode 71, about the Gary Johnson campaign. There was a whole lot to like about Gary Johnson. Now, he made some pretty big unforced errors, Bill Weld being the biggest one.
Oh.
But I actually saw Gary campaign in 08, in 12 and in 16 in Ohio, more so in 12. And he was great. Like, he would speak at high schools, and he was like 80% of Ron Paul. Like, he was on fire, and he was great. But for some reason, and I think that there was some, like, the guy who was kind of running his campaign had some issues, I think. But as well as they didn't build that bench, right? They had they came along in 12 and 16 when there were really bad candidates, especially in 16, and got a bunch of protest votes, but they didn't do the education. They weren't interested in the ideas. They weren't interested in building, and accepting that. They had a very top-down sort of, we're going to appoint people to this PAC and do this and all that, and which was the exact opposite of the Ron Paul thing. And so I think that was just another thing in Michael Heiss and the other guys who started this thing. They saw that. It's like, well, we got 4 million votes, but the LP is smaller now 6 months later than it was. Maybe not 6 months, maybe it was a year, but like it certainly didn't leave anything in its wake. So what you're doing here in Tennessee is exactly what, and nobody's telling you what to do, right? Like you and Dave and everybody is kind of figuring it out, and you're telling us what's going on, which is great.
Yeah, I mean, that's not to say I don't get a random text occasionally at 5:30 from Jeff Douglas because he's at the gym saying, "What's up, playa?" Something like that. But it's not a instructional, you will do this, you will be the chessboard piece. No. It's completely organic, and it's beautiful because of it.
Yeah. Anything else on your mind? You said, why don't we talk music for a little bit? I think you're into, like, I'm like not quite a grandpa of the caucus, but kind of like the older uncle, because I like, Springsteen and John Coltrane and Van Morrison.
Oh, Coltrane, man.
Yeah. So I'm not, like, I can't get into the metal or the hip hop. I've tried, and I'll still keep trying, but I know that's you and Mike Heiss kind of bonded over that. So what type of stuff are you listening to these days?
So I'm an odd duck. Okay. I've been on this course with music. I'm 34. And everything from my current generation, I was really big into progressive metal, still am. But I remember I toured with this virtuoso guy named Tony McAlpine. I managed him for 3 years. He used to play with Steve Vai. And I asked him, "What do you listen to?" And he's like, "I don't really listen to anything." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, I listen to what inspires me. And I'm like, "So you don't listen to your peers?" "No, I don't listen to my peers." And I mean, Eddie Van Halen used to do this too. And I took that framework, and I try to, like I said, I'm a formula guy. And I looked at that formula, and I was like, so what you have in the current scene, in my opinion, not always, but you have a group of people that are looking parallel. They're looking horizontal instead of vertical. So they're trying to compete with their neighbor. And you can create some cool stuff, but a lot of times, maybe I'm the old guy yelling at the clouds, but a lot of the stuff occasionally you hear, you can't say, "Oh, that's such and such," or "That's such and such." So me being the old guy on the hill, I tried to put his frame of mind on, and he's like, you always you're always competing with your influences, not your peers, because you want to recreate the magic of the person that inspired you,
Yep.
not your peers. And so what I started to do, I was like, when he told me that, I was like, huh. And so I have like reverted back to the people I enjoy listening to what they listen to. I am now going back and listening to who inspired them to even pick up the instrument. And so that's how I went down. I went down deep down the rabbit hole, and you never hit the bottom of Frank Zappa. And
wow.
I love Zappa, dude. Zappa, the mothers of invention, anything. And then you talk about, I'm also evangelical about Frank Zappa, ironically, especially in this movement because he was such a cultural icon for freedom and liberty. Highly recommend watching the documentary. It's on Hulu and Amazon that recently came out about his life. The dude came out of retirement because Chechnya summoned him for their first live concert.
Yeah, I think I remember that. Yeah.
And dude, talk about chills when he walks out to a complete huge soccer stadium sold out with, because the police would go and silence people that were playing any kind of music during the time and say, stop that Zappa music. That's what they called loud disturbances, was that Zappa music. So he was an iconic symbol of freedom and speech to the people in in Europe. So I went down the Zappa bunny rabbit hole. I got on a huge Floyd kick recently. I'm a hard physical copy nerd, so my wife hates it. Every time we go to an antique shop, I walk away with a bucket full of vinyl. Yeah. And vinyls or like old school political pins. Like I found a really good set the other day of 1964 mint condition. Ask Me Why I'm with Barry tags.
Oh wow. Yeah,
man. Yeah. But music's a beautiful thing. I always, Ron used to say this, and he was so right. Any movement without art is dead on arrival, because it's art that finds a way. Art has a way, and music is art. There's many forms of art, but art and music has a way of connecting and lowering someone's defense mechanisms to receive a message. And any movement without quality music and art, it can't thrive and grow. And that's something within the caucus that's been beautiful, is to see how many people, you don't have to say you like their art by default because they're in the movement. You can actually judge their art on the grounds of their art. It's not like I'm from I grew up Christian my whole life. It's not like another Kirk Cameron movie I have to say I like because, it's not that. It's like, this is really good. If you want comedy, we got great comedians, dude. You got Dave, you got Robbie the Fire, you got Lou Perez, you got Adam Nutter. Like, we've got really quality comedians. If you want great music, you've got great music. You got Backwards, if that's your thing. You've got Casey Sable, whose house I'm going to in a minute. A huge voluntarist anarchist, original vocalist from Periphery. Since he moved to Nashville from LA, we host these meetings every week. It's awesome. Everybody knows him in the modern metal scene. And he loves the Institute and he loves the caucus. So it's been awesome to see quality art come out of this movement, man. It's organic. It's beautiful.
We ought to, with your background, we ought to try to do a Liberty Music Festival here in Tennessee. Especially do it next, year or two out when everybody's, back up and in the swing of touring and stuff. That would be great. And to get, and you kind of could use like the Bonnaroo model of, hip hop. And I know we could find some bluegrassers. We got to have that. That's the other thing I'm into is like the classic bluegrass stuff.
Like, do you like bluegrass or do you like old time? Like,
there's a
Tommy Jarrell era, or
I'm glad you know the distinction. I love both. And I got into old time after I got into bluegrass. So like the stuff I like the most is Bill Monroe, Flatt and Scruggs, Stanley Brothers, Del McCurry, Tony Rice. That's about as modern as I like. But then, Uncle Dave Macon, all those guys who, Tommy Jarrell.
I graduated with his great grandson.
Oh wow, he was Fiddler, yeah. So
that's how I knew him.
So the difference is basically like pre-war,
mm-hmm.
before Earl Scruggs did the 3-finger roll on the banjo. that stuff's either, before that's either country or old, what we call old time. And then a lot of people don't know what bluegrass actually is. And I could give you a half-hour lecture on that, but it's all well, there's two kinds of music, right? Good and bad. So we can
that's so true.
We can find the good music in the people who, or at least who love liberty, or at least on an issue or two. I know you could pull it off, and we got people who can help you, so we should do that.
Absolutely, and it would be something I talked when I went to the recent Mises event up in Fairfax, Virginia, that sold out. I talked to Heiss because it was basically a dry run to put that seminar tour on the ground, and I'm like, dude, we need to do that in Tennessee. We can spearhead it. We've got the talent here to do it and facilitate it and be great. And there's no reason why we can't. Yeah, absolutely. We'll talk more about that for sure.
Is plug, and I'll put all this on the show notes page, episode 72, decentralizedrevolution.com/72. But shout out to how people can hook up with For All Tennessee LP convention coming up, and any of the MECOCs here in the volunteer state who haven't gotten plugged in yet. You're the man to talk to too. So plug all those three avenues.
Absolutely. For All Tennessee is foralltn.org. You can find us on there. You can find us on all the socials, all the stuff the kids are using these days, as I say. LPTN is our website. You can find us on all the socials as well. We're very active. Dave Benner's doing a heck of a job as comm director with messaging right now. With Tennessee. We're in the top 5 as far as my understanding from metrics. And then you can always reach me. Facebook, Instagram, don't do the Twitter anymore. Decided I could be more productive in real life. So I deleted that. But JSizzleB is my handle on Instagram. Look me up as Josiah Baker on Facebook. More than happy. Anybody can reach out to me regarding any of this stuff. I am in charge of vendor tables. We're running really low. We're only doing 20 vendor tables. And I will plug some of the vendors that we've got upcoming. I'm really excited. Good Morning Liberty podcast based here in Nashville, by the way. Those guys are awesome. They're going to be there with their podcast booth set up, similar to their Freedom Fest setup, where they can rapid fire content. I hit up Clint at Liberty Lockdown. I hope he's going to make it. Really would love to have him out. Liberty on the Rocks is a meetup for 12 years from Nashville that meets once a month. They've got an outreach booth that's going to be there. Tennessee Hot Sauce Company, I know, is going to be there. They're phenomenal. I do believe Chris Darnell from Not a Real Libertarian out in the volunteer region. I think he's going to have.
Does Angela have a table?
Angela will have a table. The caucus has a table. I am actually probably going to do my own table for whatever it is that I do. I don't know what I'll call it, but I'm going to offer a space for any liberty-loving artist to be able to sell their product, their merchandise at my booth. Just because I believe in supporting these good quality artists that believe in liberty. And dude, I'm excited. I'm fired up. We're really looking forward to kick off a great convention.
And that's March 12th, 13th, or
it's March 18th through 20th.
That's right. I got mixed up. I thought I wasn't going to be able to make it because my wife's birthday is the 14th, and we were going to do something that weekend. And I was like, oh man, I can't make it. Then I realized I had the wrong weekend. So I got my room at the Red Roof, and I'll be there. And,
awesome.
So yeah, if you're listening to this and you're anywhere close, I'll buy you a drink, and Josiah will buy you dinner if you come out and say the magic words. So yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad to get to spend a little more time with you, even virtually. And you got some stuff going on. You're an hour behind me, so your 8 o'clock meeting is going to be here in a few minutes. So
it is.
I appreciate you working into my schedule, and yeah, I can't wait till not only Manchester but Reno a couple months after that.
Absolutely, and shout out to Bold Patriot Brewery for letting me sit this entire time in their parking lot. Love those guys.
All right. And there you have it. I'd like to thank Josiah Baker for his time and wisdom and his just irrepressible personality and energy. Going to look forward to seeing him at the Libertarian Party of Tennessee convention, which of course is coming up in March. It is March 18th through the 20th. Scott Horton's going to be there. I'm going to be there. Josiah's going to be there. I will put a link to, if you're interested, if you're anywhere within a few hundred miles of there and want to come by and say hi, please do so. Go to decentralizedrevolution.com/73, and we'll have a link there for you to sign up to go to the convention. Thanks to Dave versus Goliath for all the music you hear on Decentralized Revolution. And as always, thanks to everyone who subscribes to our email list and gives to Mises PAC at takehumanaction.com, and everyone who shares, rates, reviews, and subscribes to Decentralized Revolution. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.